Today we're going to talk healing after a hysterectomy. So you just had your uterus removed and you want to know when you're going to be back to feeling good, feeling normal, but a hysterectomy is a big procedure. So you can either have the hysterectomy via a laparoscopic surgery or via an abdominal opening. If it's laparoscopic, it's going to be a little less invasive, where you'll just have a few portholes in your belly and the uterus will be taken out through the vagina, or they will open you abdominally and take the uterus that way. So how to make sure that you are fully optimized and healed so you can get back to your energy, your life, and feeling really, really good post-hysterectomy. And then I'm going to go through a couple things that you'll want to prevent when it comes to hysterectomy itself and just things to look out for. And so after laparoscopic procedure, typically it is a 3 to 4 week time period of rest, really letting the body heal, not doing a ton of activity. And this means even just like being in bed. If it's an abdominal surgery, you're going to be looking at more the 5 to 6 week timeline. So you want to keep that in mind. And now, no matter what type of surgery you had, you probably have some portholes through the abdominal wall. And that just means that's where they stuck the cameras. And so you're gonna have scar tissue in those portholes. And so after the 3 to 6 week mark, depending on what your scars are and what they look like, you are going to want to start to rub them and to touch them. And if it doesn't feel good to touch them right away or they feel scary, then it is really important that you tell your brain it's okay. You can take a tissue or a Kleenex and start to rub the porthole and just get it used to that sensation. Then once you start rubbing the scar and touching the scar and it feels okay to do that with a tissue, then you can start taking your fingertip and start doing the same thing, just rubbing in a circular fashion, in a counterclockwise fashion. And then if that feels good, then you're going to want to start pinching the scar tissue to work it out. So you'll pinch it, you can pick the skin away from the belly, you can pinch it horizontally, pinch it vertically, and then just start to really rub it. So you start to break up the scar tissue that was created simply just from the portholes alone. Once that starts to feel good and mobile and you start getting back to feeling better, you're also going to want to add in a couple more crucial elements to getting your belly to fully heal and getting your body to fully heal after a hysterectomy. The hysterectomy is a big, big surgery. And in my personal biased opinion as a pelvic expert physical therapist, I believe that after someone has a hysterectomy, they absolutely need to have pelvic work done or intravaginal pelvic floor muscle work done in order to fully help hydrate the muscles and bring good blood flow back to these muscles and to relieve any scar tissue that has developed just from this surgery alone. And so what that looks like, seeing a pelvic expert physical therapist. And so here is the pelvic floor. So the uterus usually sits up high and then you have the cervix, and whether you maybe had your cervix taken out or it was left with the remaining tissue. So it just depends on why they did the hysterectomy and what they took and what they left. But a lot of times they'll leave the cervix to try to maintain some integrity of the vaginal canal. So what needs to happen is that we need to start to heal these muscles after a hysterectomy. There's a lot of tension that develops with healing after a hysterectomy, just the tightness of removing the uterus and the tension that is developed after surgery. We tend to brace ourselves, and that can cause a lot of tension through the pelvic floor. So we want to start to get these muscles dynamic again and mobile again. And so one way we can do that is through breath work and breathing. So if you see any of our other videos, I talk about diaphragmatic breathing a ton, and I relate that down to the pelvic floor. But working on a breath practice to help open the pelvic floor and gain range of motion of the pelvic floor is going to optimize your healing so much so. Truly, after hysterectomy, what we want to prevent is a prolapse of the vaginal vault. So here is vagina. And usually at the top of the vagina, there's the cervix, and then you have the uterus. Well, if they remove the uterus and they remove the cervix, then they make the vault with just tissue alone. And then that can prolapse over time, meaning that it can drop down, and you don't want that to happen. We want to maintain the integrity of that. The healthier we can get the pelvic floor muscles through intravaginal work, through working on range of motion, using breath work, the better the integrity of the vaginal canal and the less likely of a vaginal vault prolapse. So that's that if they take the cervix. Even if they leave the cervix can still prolapse down, just because the uterus has a lot of integrity of endopelvic fascia around it. And those are like sheets of saran wrap that help hold the uterus in place. So when you take the uterus out, we lose a lot of that support system. And so we want to help maintain the integrity of the rest of the vaginal canal, just so we don't get the bladder falling in, we don't get the rectum falling in, and we don't get the vault prolapsing down. We want to keep those all in their places. And so a really important thing we need to do is the breath work to help maintain the range of motion of the pelvic floor, on top of getting in touch with a pelvic expert physical therapist. Many people will travel here from far places to come do an intensive here in Edmonds, Washington. Well, they'll come for a week after they've had a hysterectomy, just for full healing for an entire week. And we do intensive scar massage and scar work, and then really working to help get that range of motion of the pelvic floor so that you have less likelihood to prolapse in the future. And then you just start to feel really good. Oftentimes after prolapse, people can get tight hips, tight backs, and that's really, really common because the pelvic floor is so affected after you take the uterus out. And we have to reestablish the blood flow to the pelvic floor and the range of motion to these muscles to get true holistic healing. And it's a really underrated, not talked about thing that happens after we have a hysterectomy. So the breath work alone, will use a diaphragmatic breathing pattern. And what that looks like is simply just, you can put some hands on your belly, take a nice deep breath into the belly, and then exhale. And as you inhale, you want to think about the vagina opening, the anus opening, the air is going all the way down to pelvic floor. And then exhale, you get this natural recoil. Inhale, you get the opening. And exhale, you get the natural recoil. That is the range of motion that we're trying to establish for the pelvic floor. And so many times, especially people that are menopausal or after they've had hysterectomy, to get their bladder control back, they go on and do Kegels. Well, that oftentimes actually reduces the range of motion, which is going to reduce their bladder control and can oftentimes increase their pain. So if you have pain hysterectomy in your pelvis, you absolutely need a pelvic expert physical therapist. It should be a standard recommendation. Anyone who has a hysterectomy should absolutely see a pelvic expert to start to gain this range of motion back for many, many reasons. If we can get range of motion back of our pelvic floor for healing, then every time you're walking or you're moving your body in space, you're gonna get this natural recoil of the pelvic floor, which is like a slinky, also a shock absorber. So every time your foot hits the ground, your core is this shock absorber. That's gonna take all the pressure off your joints, your hips, your knees, your back, your ankles. Because if your core is absorbing the forces, then your joints don't absorb the forces. And that's the idea and the reason behind needing so much range of motion from our pelvic floor. But if you've never had pelvic floor therapy or you don't even know what I'm talking about, start with the breath work and start healing that and working that to get the range of motion of your pelvic floor. And that will help you heal after this hysterectomy. So you can get back to walking, you can get back to your exercise routine or whatever it was you were doing beforehand. So that is really important. So we touched on like a few basics in this video. We touched on healing times. So that 3 to 6 weeks, depending on how the uterus came out of you. We touched on what we want to prevent. We want to prevent the pelvic organ prolapse of the vault. And then we touched on doing scar work of the portholes to help improve the mobility of the abdominal wall, bring back the core. And then we talked about getting range of motion of the pelvic floor back. And if we can get range of motion, incontinence will be better, you'll have bladder control, you'll have bowel control, and you're gonna have a better sex life too, because you're gonna have better blood flow to these muscles and better lubrication, and things will just feel better for yourself and for your partner. So I hope this was beneficial for you. Please like and subscribe to this video. We really value you following us and supporting us, and anything that we can do. So I wish you the best healing on your healing journey with your hysterectomy. And please let me know what comments you have, what questions you have, and I will get back to you directly. I'm Dr. Allison Felt. Take care.